Hey everybody, I hope everyone is doing great today. Motown had a number of talented artists, and among them was the very talented Tammi Terrell. Tammy has one of the saddest stories I've ever heard in my life, y'all. Very sad. I want to talk about her today. Tammi Terrell was born as Thomasina Winifred Montgomery on April 29th, 1945, in Philadelphia, to Jenny Graham and Thomas Montgomery. Her mother was an actress, and Thomas was a barbershop owner and local politician. They were expecting to have a boy, so they settled for the name Tommy. It was said that Tommy was a vivacious and lively child. Tommy took dancing and piano lessons at 3 years old. Her cousin Grace Wood said if she went to anybody's house and they had a piano, she would sit down and play and sing. Her sister said Tommy decided without a doubt that she was going to be a star. Tommy performed every chance she got, and she seemed happy despite problems at home. Her mother was clinically depressed and spent months at a time in a sanitarium receiving treatment. Tommy herself suffered from severe headaches. Her cousin Grace said that one day Tommy said, "I got a headache," and she saw there was a vein under Tommy's eye that would stand out. She said they gave her glasses, but nobody thought to x-ray her head or anything like that. Tommy's sister said her mother also had headaches, so they kind of brushed it off, saying maybe headaches run in the family. When Tommy was 11 years old, she had a terrible, terrible experience that shouldn't happen to anybody, especially a child. She was raped by three older boys on her way home from a neighborhood club. Her sister said on the Unsung episode that this incident, more or less, was swept under the rug. For months, Tommy was withdrawn. It is said after she revived, she became different. She became wilder, rebellious, and interested in boys. Poor Tommy. It was said that all of a sudden, Tommy hated her name and she changed it to Tammy. She started putting more time into her dream of becoming a star, performing in talent shows all over Philadelphia. In 1960, Skepta Records signed Tammy to a recording contract. She was not yet 15 years old. 3 months later, she did her first record called If You See Bill. Tammy recorded a number of songs for Skepta Records, and on school breaks, she toured with other Skepta stars like Chuck Jackson and Tommy Hunt. Allegedly, she had a road romance with Hunt and was very popular with the guys back in Philly. Her cousin Grace said she was busy and she was well developed. She said Tammy responded like a much older person. She said she thinks back and she realized why Tammy was living so fast, and it's because she didn't have long to live. By 1962, Tammy had a record deal at 17 years old. That summer, Steve Gibson and the Red Caps hired her to front their shows in Wildwood, New Jersey. She did 5 sets a night, 6 days a week. Tammy's mother wanted her to be as successful as she could, so she drove to Atlantic City and convinced James Brown to come to Wildwood to see Tammy perform. He did. Then he asked Tammy to join his review. At the time, working with James Brown was a step up in her career, but it would turn out to be not good on a personal level. Tammy toured with James Brown for several months while she was still in high school. She would take her homework on the road. She also recorded a new single on James Brown Try Me label. Tammy began a relationship with James Brown. Elaine Jesmer mentioned on Tammy's Unsung episode that Tammy told her that James used to hit her regularly in the head, among other places. Her cousin Grace Wood also said he beat Tammi up and she had to get her teeth capped. She says she remembers Tammi telling her, but she didn't want to hear it. Gene Chandler, Duke of Earl, who sometimes performed with James and Tammi, witnessed one of the beatings James Brown gave Tammi. Tammi made a mistake of not standing in the wings and watching all of his performance. Gene Chandler said when he finished the show, he marched off the stage and he started beating her, and he beat her down to the basement to his room. Later that evening, he said Tammi asked him to take her down to the bus station and get her a bus ticket home to Philadelphia. He said he called her mother, and the very next day her mother came and got her. It is said that the beatings and the breakup gave Tammi second thoughts about a music career. In 1963, she enrolled in the pre-med program at the University of Pennsylvania on a full scholarship. In 1965, Jerry the Iceman Butler asked her to join his show. Tammi agreed after they worked out a schedule so she could stay in school. Weeks later, Berry Gordy saw her performing with Butler at a nightclub in Detroit and offered her a record deal the next day. Tammi put school on hold and signed with the Motown Records on her birthday in 1965 at 20 years old. Tammy's first single with Motown was I Can't Believe You Love Me. It came out in November of 1965. By then, Tammi had a new name. Berry thought her last name, Montgomery, was too long to put on a record, so he changed it to Terrell. Tammi went on the road as part of the Motown Revue and got close to David Ruffin of The Temptations. Her sister said she was madly in love with David Ruffin. It was said on her On Song episode that her and David lived together for a few years. David had asked Tammi to marry him, but he was already married with children. His wife and kids were in Detroit. Elaine said they argued a lot and they would hit each other. In 1967, Berry Gordy chose Tammi Terrell to team up with Marvin Gaye to record duets. These two became a hit. They recorded Ain't No Mountain High Enough. It was released on April 27th, 1967. It went to number 19 on the pop chart and number 3 on the R&B charts. Marvin and Tammi also developed a close friendship. Their next single was Your Precious Love, and that song was even bigger. It went to number 5 on the pop chart and number 2 on the R&B charts. Marvin and Tammi had wonderful chemistry together, and it showed in their performance. Tammy's sister talked about the rumors she heard about Tammi and David's relationship. There was a rumor that he hit her in the head with a hammer, and all kinds of crazy stories, she said. She said they fought and David hit Tammi on the side of her face with a motorcycle helmet. She said David never hit Tammi with a hammer hatchet, so that rumor is not true. Tammi left David Ruffin after the motorcycle helmet incident. Tammy's headaches that she had since childhood had become constant. Marvin Gaye also noticed the headache issues she was having. Tammi and Marvin's third single was a duet. As a duet was Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing. They did an awesome job at that. Yet again, their chemistry showed in the song. This was Tammy's first number 1. Dr. Ernest Garrett said that Marvin Gaye said he's had 6 or 7 partners, but Tammi was the one. There was no contest. Marvin noticed the terrible headaches Tammi had that would sometimes leave her gasping for breath. 2 weeks after recording Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing, Tammi and Marvin Gaye were performing at Hampden-Sydney College in Virginia. They were in the middle of singing Your Precious Love when Tammi collapsed in Marvin Gaye's arms. Marvin picked her up and took her off the stage. It is said that Marvin Gaye was very devastated when this happened. He held himself responsible for some reason for not knowing how bad her issue was. Marvin canceled the tour and brought Tammi Terrell back to Detroit. She flew to Philly where doctors ran tests on her. Doctors diagnosed a malignant tumor on the right side of her brain. She underwent brain surgery at Graduate Hospital in Philadelphia in January 1968. After the surgery, there were dramatic improvements, even with her headaches. Tammi returned to Motown 6 months after her surgery. She and Marvin went back to the studio and recorded another song by Ashford and Simpson called You're All I Need to Get By. But Tammi didn't have her usual confidence and energy. That stamina wasn't there like before. Tammi was in and out of the studio, and it took a while for them to record You're All I Need to Get By. Tammi had a lot of courage and determination. The tumor grew back and the headaches returned. She had a second surgery to insert tubes to drain fluid from her head. Tammi had a total of 8 major surgeries. This girl went through a whole lot and went through it with courage. She never gave up. Her sister said Tammi always thought that she would get better. Her song, Ain't Nothing Like the Real Thing, went to #1 and she couldn't even get to enjoy it because of everything she was going through. By 1969, Tammi Terrell had retired from live performances. Tammi had to wear wigs and she had slurred speech. Tammi finally found some happiness in love when she fell in love with a doctor she met at a party. His name was Dr. Ernest Garrett. Tammy's tumor grew back. She could feel it bulging out of the base of her neck. The symptoms got worse. She suffered. She became weak on the left side of her body, and she began to have more headaches. Weldon Arthur said on her Unsung episode that Tammi began to hallucinate a lot of the time. Her sister said she would scream and yell because of how bad her headache was hurting, how bad her head was hurting. Dr. Garrett said Tammi would say to him, "You're a doctor, give me something for pain," and he would. He said when she had her smooth periods, she would just look out the window and sing. Marvin Gaye sent her cards and called her every week. Berry Gordy covered her medical bills. Despite all her pain, Tammi continued to believe in her dream. In the spring of 1969, while rehabbing from her 6th operation, Tammi returned to Detroit in a wheelchair to record songs for a final album of duets with Marvin Gaye. The album was called Easy. She had went down to 93 pounds. In 1969 at the Apollo, Marvin Gaye and Carla Thomas were the headliners. Tammi Terrell, very ill with brain cancer, was in the audience. It was said that she could barely walk and talk, much less sing and perform. But her drive, she had a lot of drive. Her drive for singing and performing was still strong. When Marvin was singing You're All I Need to Get By, Tammi Terrell stood up and started singing. Marvin looked over and saw her. Dr. Garrett said Marvin left Carla on stage and said, "Tammi!" He came over to the side and they started singing. They gave Tammi a mic and she did her thing. Back in Philly, she had her 7th operation to cut out the cancer from her brain, even though doctors felt it was a lost cause. But Tammi had a strong will to live. She was back in the hospital, in and out of consciousness. On occasion, she felt well enough to sing. Dr. Garrett said one day they were sitting there and Tammi said, "Be quiet, I want to sing to you." And she sang You're All I Need to Get By. And he started crying. He said she realized this was near the end and it was important to him to try and keep her happy, knowing what was coming. Tammi did her eighth and final surgery on January 21st, 1970, to help relieve her terrible pain. She hung in there for 2 months, then fell into a coma and died on March 16th, 1970, at only 24 years old. Her funeral was held at the James Methodist Church in Philadelphia, the same church she sang in as a young girl. 3,000 fans paid tribute to her outside in the rain. Tammi's mother did not want the people from Motown to come to the funeral. She blamed them for not protecting her daughter from David. She only wanted Marvin Gaye to be there. Marvin delivered her final eulogy with "You're All I Need" playing in the background. He cried. I heard that Marvin Gaye was not the same after losing Tammi Terrell. Friends say Marvin blamed himself somehow for Tammy's death. He had a meltdown. Dr. Garrett said Marvin called him and said, "What am I going to do?" Many people believe that the beatings from James Brown and David caused Tammy's death, but Tammi was having these headaches from childhood. The doctor that was interviewed on her on Song episode said the blows to the head is unlikely to have caused Tammy's brain tumor. This beautiful girl went through a lot in her short life. It was so unfair to her. Tammy's talent will continue to live on. And you can find most of this in the Unsung episode for Tammi. Rest in peace, Sister Tammi Terrell. Please subscribe and I'll see you guys next time.